Hey, everybody. I'm Jesse.
Hi, and I'm Adam, and I am sick and tired of these motherfucking snakes on my motherfucking plane.
And this is Boring Conversation. That was a good one.
Welcome to Boring Conversation, a Malifaux podcast.
All right, so this is the first recording in a while. For those of you who actually paid attention to the feed, I did release a quick little heads-up episode this morning that we would be recording this evening, and I made a mistake in that 2 minutes worth of content that I recorded and said that we had done our first GG1 tournament, which is wrong. We did our first GG2 tournament.
Yeah, you're fired.
So we're here today to talk about GG2,
Yeah,
not GG1.
yeah, GG2.
Yeah. Yes.
Dos.
Yes.
The
So
second.
on the podcast today, as you've heard, we have my brave co-host
Hiyo.
Adam. Yeah. Say hi to all the people, Adam.
Hi, people.
Hi, people. There we go. And then we're also joined by actually the other two folks that made it to podium in the event. So we've got first Josh Gajda. Say hi,
Hello.
Josh. Yeah.
Hey.
So Josh has been on a couple of podcasts before. He's back here joining us today. And this is actually probably like I would say 5th or 6th of my events that you've come to. Maybe even more. I don't know. You've been kind of a regular. And
Yeah, I try to be.
Josh travels from the other side of the state, which, you'd think in a tiny little state like Massachusetts isn't very far, but we're still talking, probably like an hour and a half, 2-hour drive, probably.
Yeah, so about 2 hours and 15 out to the armory anyway.
Yes. So Josh is officially part of the extended armory travel team at this point, according to me anyway. So there you go. And the other guest that we have is Kyle, who I just realized I spelled his name wrong on the call sheet. There we go.
Fair enough.
The other guest that we have on the pod today, his name is Kyle Barr. So, Kyle, thanks
Hello.
for joining us. So, tell us a little bit about yourself, sir.
Well, okay, so I'm on Long Island. You know, the Long Island Malifaux scene is basically me and another guy, Jeff. You probably know him from his videos that he does on the master backstory video stuff he does. So if you don't know that stuff, go ahead and check that out. But it's basically me and him is the entire Malifaux scene on Long Island, plus him and a few friends. So, you know, if you're in New York and you want to play Malifaux, just hit us up because we're jonesing half the time. But anyway, yeah, that's I drove maybe if you discount the ferry, it was about 3 hours, but getting back because there's no ferry after 8 was about 5 hours. So fun time.
Yikes.
Wow.
Yeah, I think that Kyle and his brother who joined him they probably hold the record for longest drive for a single day 3-round event that I've ever seen. So
I don't know why they did it.
I think I drove like 4 hours one time to the for the BK4 guys for a one day or before.
Oh boy! So thank you and your brother very much for coming out to join us. So tell me, Josh, as discussed on other shows, Malifaux is your first minis game. But what else did you do in terms of like hobby stuff besides that?
Yeah. So I came into the game actually through painting D&D miniatures for my group of friends, and I had all these things sitting around, and I was like, geez, I wish I could do something else with these except for playing once a week on Friday nights, And I saw that M2E raspy art, and then it was all over. I got sucked in.
Awesome. So aside from Malifaux, do you have any other hobbies of note?
I mean, I've played Age of Sigmar. I've played 40K a bunch. Done a little bit of Kill Team in passing, but I really just keep coming back to Malifaux after all said and done.
Awesome. So, Kyle, tell us a little bit about what brought you to Malifaux. How long you've been playing? Are there any other mini games or any other hobbies that you want to chit chat about for a minute?
Right. Well, if you want to chat about hobbies, let me get the list, and I just bring out the freaking box. It's like, all right, let's shift through this. Yeah, I mean, I got into miniature gaming through Warhammer. You know, I was probably like 16, probably. I was an Imperial Guard player, so did that for a while, then branched into other minis games, and so now I just have too many. Like I play Arena Rex, I play Warhammer, I play Malifaux, of course. What else do I got? I got Necromunda stuff. I got some probably a bunch of other random miniatures games. Like I've played a little bit of Frostgrave. I have some models for that, and too many bags. And I'm sitting in my friend's attic. Like, why do I have so much stuff?
Yeah, yeah. I think
um,
we can all identify with that to some degree or another, right?
yeah. I mean, other hobbies. I do. I'm a writer by trade, so I'm a journalist. So I do some fiction writing in my spare time, which is actually most of my time right now. And I read a bunch, and I also do some historical European martial arts, which I just got into recently through my housemate. So longsword stuff, and it's really fun. If
That's
if
pretty damn cool.
Yeah, if you're ever looking for like a Long Island based group, look at the Long Island Historical Fencing Society. There is a really great bunch of people who do that. So if you're around that area, New York, Long Island, just give them a holler. They'd love to have you.
Fantastic. All right. So, with introductions out of the way, perhaps the most important segment of the night is what are y'all drinking tonight? So, I'll start. I actually got a chance to brew a batch of beer about a month ago at this point. I hadn't brewed for a little while, but I'm pretty happy with this one. It's a British Best Bitter,
Mm.
like a pub style, kind of lowish alcohol, nice, firmly malty beer, but a little bit of a bitter backbone to it. Kind of went out of my way to get all British ingredients, particular type of British base malt, hops, yeast, the whole 9 yards, and came up pretty pretty good. So that's what I'm drinking. Adam, how about you?
What am I drinking? You're lucky I'm here. I didn't even have a chance to make a drink yet. Are you crazy?
Oh, you
Dude, my schedule has
bastard.
been so fucking crazy. What am I drinking? I'm drinking salty tears of shame and sadness.
Mm.
Because, yeah. So here's the thing, right? I mean, like, I could cop out and, like, do a beer, but the problem is I've just recently found out I've got, like, gluten sensitivity. So beer is, like, right out the window now. And I'm not exactly stocked with anything. And between work and family and life and just shit and shenanigans, I just don't have any of the stocks right now. So I got on the podcast about 10 minutes late, and which is funny because I actually earlier in the day I reminded the guys to bring a drink, make sure they had one, and I dropped the ball on that. So I'm going to take a mulligan today. I'm going to make that pass.
Fair enough. I'll make sure I drop some cider off at your house the next time I'm driving through there.
Thanks, babe. Sours too. I
There
like
you go.
sours.
Yeah, all the ones I have malt in them.
Yeah,
Yeah,
well,
sorry, dude. Anyway, so since Adam basically flubbed it and didn't bring anything, Kyle, why don't you tell me what are you drinking tonight?
It's a rum and root. The ice is already melted and the drink's solidifying, but I'm drinking it as fast as I can.
Fantastic. Put that shit away so that we can get to this. Josh, how about you, sir?
Tonight we have Black is Beautiful, a dry hopped tropical stout, says the can, by Harpoon.
Oh, cool. Tropical stout's not really a style you see too often. Um, that's actually something that's on my list of stuff to brew later on this year. So I can bore everybody with the details of the history of the style, but I won't do that right now. So yeah,
the name of the show is literally boring conversation.
it's true. It is, but we have a lot of content to get through. So let's get to it. So getting right down to it, I guess we could probably talk about the final standings just so everybody knows where we ended up. So we pulled in an 8-man tournament. It would have been 10, but one of our what do you call it, participants drove all the way from central Massachusetts, got into the parking lot, and then his car died. so he had to have it towed back to Central Massachusetts. And then I would have been playing, and we would have been at 10. But alas, we were at 8. So for this event, in first place we had Adam. In second place we had Kyle, and in third place we had Josh. And we were fortunate enough to be able to get each podium taker onto the podcast tonight. And there were a couple of games that they played each other, so I'm kind of interested to see them talk about their games. And really, what we're looking for in this episode is kind of first impressions of GG2 after their first event, impressions of models and upgrades and changes to the core mechanics of the game, how they affected their games, and kind of what everybody thinks of them overall, and if they think that the game has moved in the right direction or not. So moving right into round 1, we had corrupted ley lines for the strategy with corner deployment, assassinate, outflank, hidden martyrs, spread them out, and catch and release. So first up, we'll have Adam talk a little bit about his game. He played against a Jacob Lynch crew. Adam, I believe you won that game 5-2. And according to my results here, you took 1 point for assassinate, 1 point for outflank, and 3 points for the strategy. So tell us a little bit about how the game went.
Yeah, so I ended up going with the Vix into this. I really wanted to do 3 different masters for the tournament, and I wanted to try masters that I haven't really played a ton with. Knowing it was corner, I decided I was going to go with outflank because Ronin with the updated Wanted Criminal upgrade are just insanely fast, and they get disguised so they become really tough to kill. And I figured being corner, I could zip them up the lines, and then somebody would have to send something out to get them. And they're almost going to auto score outflank. So I did that, and I really wanted to try the Vix into ley lines because I think it's totally in its totality. It's a fast crew. It's got a lot of pushes, and everything pretty much went according to plan for it. What ended up stymieing me is we got into like the middle of turn 4, and I had set up for turn 5 to score the remainder of the points. But we ended up getting to the point where we couldn't start another turn, so I ended up getting chopped off at the knees there a little bit. But overall, it went pretty well. Lynch does some crazy things. I don't have a ton of experience against him, but I did like what the Vix brought to the table for that.
Yeah, and so was there anything in particular that made you pick Vix over the other masters in your stable, aside from just wanting to play 3 different masters?
Yeah, like I said, I mean, I wanted to pick masters I didn't have a lot of experience with. It was our first tournament coming back from a little bit of a layoff, and I didn't want to go with the masters I've normally been playing, and I wanted to start GG2 fresh with some other masters. So, like I said, with ley lines, I think a lot of their movement is pushes, and they're incredibly fast. So I can put the football on somebody, and I can move them relatively with ease, and I don't have to worry about placement and losing the football or anything like that. I can just carry them across the board. I think the new way pushes work really helped with the Vix, because they had some abilities that would let them both push at the same time, and they'd get in their way, and then they're not doing what they're supposed to do. But now you can kind of push off center. And I like I said, I had some theories around them, and I think that they are actually a pretty quality crew, and I think that they get overlooked a lot. But I mean, when you can pump out, I mean, there was turns where I was pumping out like 9 to 10 stat 7 attacks onto like Huggy, and it's like before he could even do anything. I mean, I think they got some play definitely. I really wanted to try them out. It worked out well though. I think they worked out pretty well. A lot of it for me is going to be figuring out, what looks good on the card as opposed to what translates into actual play. But yeah, so overall, I think it was a fairly successful game.
So what do you think of the new Wanted Criminals?
Oh, I love it. It's super good. Like I said, it makes Ronin just incredibly fast, especially if they're going to be doing some kind of flank or some kind of corner scheme. I mean, they already have a built-in 2-inch push from battle tempo, then they get the 3-inch push when they start their activation, then they get the other, they get a couple extra inches of push if they're near the table edge, which they're probably going to be. And by that time, I mean, they essentially become like a 4 AP model. It's insane.
Yeah, I mean, we were kind of talking a little bit before we started recording, and I feel like Wanted Criminal, like whoever redesigned it must have made it specifically for Ronin. And I'm sure there are other minions and outcasts that it's a great match for, but literally everything on that upgrade is amazing for Ronin.
Yeah, it brings them up to like 12.
I mean, they were already great,
yeah,
but them with that upgrade they're more than competent at pretty much anything you need them to do. I mean, they're great schemers. They're that much more survivable. It gives them a bonus action that doesn't compete with their seppuku action. It's just great.
It makes them good schemers and anti-schemers, because now you can have them chase down schemers and just jump over and eat it up. Plus, I mean,
right. And if a big Gribbly comes after them, the disguise is probably going to be enough to keep them alive, and then they just push out of combat.
Exactly. And then they push out like 5 inches, and then they're just gone. Like good luck catching up to them. I mean, they're so slippery with it now. I mean, you have to have a game plan in mind with them too. I mean, you do have to kind of keep them around the edges if you want that extra movement. But even if you just want them to be anti-schemers, I mean, a 0 action that lets you move and pick up a scheme marker is solid.
Yeah. I mean, speaking of staying near the edges, so you took Outflank in this. So what do you think about Outflank being included back in the packet? And obviously your crew was particularly good at it this game.
Yeah, I've always liked that. I've always liked Outflank. I like the extra requirement of the scheme marker. I think it makes it a little harder to pull off because it was a little too easy in GG0. I mean, all you had to do was just run a model over there and you'd be fine. So now at least you have to have them over there, have a scheme marker over there. Makes it a little more difficult to pull off. But generally, I like Outflank, and I'm probably going to take it like 8 out of 10 times.
Yeah, I mean, I would tend to agree. It's a pretty good scheme. I do think that adding the scheme marker component was a great idea because it makes it at this point a relatively significant AP investment, and it's also, I mean, it's pretty easy to deny too.
It is
something that
Yeah, it is now because, I mean, you can get rid of it 2 ways, right? You can either like pull the model out of the area, or you can get rid of the scheme marker. So there's multiple ways to deny it. I think when you're playing flank or corner is when you really want to take it, because you have the extended board. And then if you end up playing something where a lot of the action's happening in the middle of the board, then you're definitely going to take it, especially if you can spare like 1 or 2 models just to go to the outside.
Yeah, I would tend to a degree. I feel like if you have enough points to dedicate models to either side, especially in those corner or flank deployments, I can see taking it, but also I feel like taking 2 models essentially out of the game for that purpose, because they are going to be so far from the action, might be kind of a big ask. I don't know. I'd have to kind of see how it played out. But I'm kind of up in the air on it. I'll say I'm 50-50.
Yeah, I had that thought as well, especially when I was playing the game, because like my Ronin were in the corner turn 1. I mean, they were already there. They were set up for turn 2 to just drop markers and sit there, and then they ended up sitting in the corners all game. So I had these 2 models sitting in the corner. I'm like, man, I really want to do something with them. I want to get them involved, but at the same time, I'm like, but they're scoring me 2 points. So
right.
I mean,
I mean, on the one hand, it's 14. What is it? 14 or 16 points of models on the flanks doing nothing but scoring, but they are getting you 2 points.
But they're scoring. I mean, so they're doing their job.
All right, cool. Well, that's a pretty good synopsis of the game. So let's move on to Kyle. And let me see here. I think, Kyle, you ended up playing... Oh, you played against Josh. How about that?
Oh, yeah.
So Kyle, you played against Josh's Kirai.
Yep.
Looks like you brought Zip this round.
Yep.
Josh ended up winning this round 5-3.
Yep.
And let's see here. It looks like for your points, Kyle, you got a 1 point for the strategy, 1 point for Hidden Martyrs, and 1 point for Outflank.
Just like to
And
spread
then,
out those points, you know?
yeah, exactly. And then Josh got 3 points for the strategy, 2 points for catch and release, and did not score any points with hidden martyrs. So I guess Kyle, we'll start with you. Just tell us about your basically how the game went, any new stuff that you took, and we'll go from there.
So I never played against Kurai before. I did not know that Kurai could just be like, all right, well, let's let's move these models halfway up the board turn one. I'm like, all right, well, that was my plan. Yep. I'm like, all right, that's Kurai, I guess. And then meanwhile, the totem's in my face, just trying to murder, my henchman, my zip, and I'm like, stop, please, my poor boy. He just wants to drop pianos. Can't you just let him drop pianos? Anyway, so I took the 2 iron skeeters and I took them both with Wanted Criminal, which honestly, like similar to Ronin, though Ronin probably get the better benefit from them. I just wanted to have really fast models to do outflank, so run those 2 models up the board. Turn 2, they're on the corners and they drop a marker under their butts and just sit on that for several turns. Meanwhile, Kirai is just trying to kill them both, and they both have disguise, so it's hard. And I'm like, oh, that's nice. Meanwhile, the rest of my models are just floundering, just sitting back, like with their thumbs in their mouths, like, please don't kill me. I'm just a poor baby gremlin. And then you murder them anyway. And I'm like, no, my poor baby gremlins. But I somehow managed to get 3 points out of there. So I guess it's a benefit to me that I barely squeaked by that.
Yeah, I've played that match before. Zip into Karai is it's a tough one. Her crew ignores several of your core mechanics, and
Yep.
it definitely is a tough match.
I kept asking him if he wants to play the piano with any of his incorporeal markers. He's like, no, I'm just gonna murder you. I'm like, damn it. I thought I had you there.
So Josh, what I know, Kyle, like you said, you took 2 wanted criminals on your 2 iron skeeters, and I'm sure that your thoughts are pretty much going to mirror Adam's, like you said.
Exactly. Wanted
It's a great
Criminal's great.
upgrade.
Yeah,
Wanted
I
criminals
think
great.
it's a great upgrade.
Yep. So I guess Josh, we can just jump right into your perception of the game and whether or not you took anything new and what you thought of the new wanted criminal, since you get to play on the opposite side of the table of it.
Absolutely. Well, disguised is super annoying, especially to Kirai's crew, but I was trying as hard as I could not to take Kirai in any of these matches, and then you served me up a corner ley lines, and I couldn't have the willpower to resist. And so I took a pretty standard crew and parked Akirio in Zip's face turn 1, because that's how Kirai do. And then I made a pretty major misplay in the last turn and ended up getting greedy, trying to get 2 points, and ended up getting none of them. So yeah, it ended up 5-3.
So you can't say something like that and not give us any juicy details.
So let me give my perspective. So I have no models left on the board. Everybody else is dead. It's like what, turn 5? Yeah, turn 5.
Yep.
I have 1 iron skeeter left, and he's like, I got the rock. He's gonna try and get to the end zone. So I run him over to one of the corrupted isles. He's just gonna sit on that. And meanwhile, Josh comes over. It's like, well, I want to both kill this model and get my stone over to the thing. And somehow I just start top decking 13, 13, 12, 13. So he's sitting there like, why won't you die? And I said, because I'm a gremlin on an iron mosquito. And that's basically the end of that.
Yeah, he had nothing to defend with. I could have walked somebody over to the other side of the board and taken the 4th point in the strategy. And I thought, you know what? I can take him out. I can take the point that he's on. I don't have to do all this extra work. I only need to activate 1 or 2 models. It's not going to be a big deal. And then my entire crew spent the entire turn trying to kill this 1 skeeter.
Worth
and
it.
Obviously, that didn't work out. So there you go.
Well,
Yeah.
You know what? We smashed him in the end, but I think it was my last or second to last activation, and I had nothing else to move across the board. Well, I'm knocking the rust off after not playing in 2021, really. So I'll blame it on that.
Yeah, no kidding.
It just ended up being one of those games, just one of those games where everything's like dumb. When I'm sitting there with a freaking iron skeeter, like, I'm going to survive this, and I die. I'm like, all right, well, that's the game.
So what did you guys think about Outflank?
I think I like the addition of the extra scheme marker. I agree with that because it before it was just you played against Arcanists and the Arcanists, of course, just took the Soulstone Miner, stuck him in a corner, took some other model, put him in the corner. It's like, well, I won that. I get a free point. Well, really, you get 2 free points because you're probably not gonna kill the Soulstone Miner. So
Yeah, and the Soulstone Miner can still affect the game by giving you Soulstones while scoring coins. Yeah,
exactly.
that's the whole thing.
Yep.
But there's a little bit less of that now with the way that Soulstone Miners have been adjusted, so
Yep.
I don't see that as being quite so much of a problem.
Yeah.
Yeah, before it was just too easy to score outflank before, and it wasn't even worth most of the time trying to stop it because you just weren't going to unless you got super lucky. And now it actually feels like you have a chance to disrupt that strategy.
Well, the other thing too is like it used to be with summoners. You could summon a model and just send them out, and because it was a positional scheme, it had nothing else to do with it. You could score it outflank. Now,
Yeah.
with the scheme marker there, since they can't interact on the turn that they're summoned, you can't just summon a model, pop them over there, and score it because if there's not a scheme marker there already, it doesn't matter.
Right, and they don't even count the turn that they're summoned.
Correct, because of the changes from this.
Yeah,
but
doubly so.
that was what made it incredibly easy in GG0, especially if you're like doing something like I would just take Dashiell and just I don't know, summon a mounted guard and send him over to the corner. There he is, got it, so
yeah, exactly. All right, cool. So, I mean, that kind of wraps up round 1. So we can just kind of move on to round 2 now.
Well, I got a question for Josh first. So Josh, the changes to summoning, does it make Karai any less the dominant master in Rezzers? Like, is there ever going to be a question of why anybody but Karai?
I don't think that I would ever notice that there had been a change to summoning, to be super honest. The only thing that's going to change for my game plan is I might hire in a second Shikome at the beginning rather than summoning one in mid game. Kurai's she's not using her summons to do scheming, so she doesn't really care about the change.
Yeah, I can't believe she didn't get even the slightest tap of the nerf bat. I mean, she did just in general, like the broad one, like all summoners got. But I mean, her specifically, she's untouched.
The way Shtuk got treated and Kurai didn't even get touched, I have no idea.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a head scratcher. I will say that with the overarching summoning changes, there are definitely more changes to Kirai and a few other summoners like Ivan in particular, kind of below the surface that you might not realize at first glance because you think to yourself, well, okay, well, I'm not going to use my summons with Kirai to go scheming because that's just not what they do. I hire in Shikome or I hire in whatever else and let them do the scheming. But like, there's certain things that you used to be able to do with summoners that you won't be able to do now. So like summoning a model into position to score things like research mission, summoning in an aggro model and having it kill something to flip a turf war marker or to score deathbeds, which we'll kind of get to. Like stuff like that you won't be able to do. So I think it takes maybe a little bit more wind out of some summoner sales than people are giving it credit for. But to your point, she definitely didn't get touched as much as I would have expected her to, and some summoners are suffering quite a bit more from these changes than others. But we'll get to that in another episode. I have something lined up with John Fox to talk about that.
We're going to be talking about the overall thoughts on GG anyway, so
yeah, exactly. So we'll get to that. I basically jumped ahead of myself a little bit, but at any rate, round 2, we've got Turf War, flank deployment with research mission, let them bleed, breakthrough, vendetta, and bait and switch. So, Adam, you played against Josh, actually. Von Schill versus Von Stuck.
yeah. So this is the first time we've played in a long time. I think the first time we've played in 3rd edition.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I think this is the first time we played in 3rd
really?
edition. Yeah. We used to play all the time in 2nd edition. Always ended up getting paired up, and then since 3rd edition started, we haven't played each other.
So the way the game played out was Adam ended up taking it. It was 5-2. You got 1 point for vendetta, 2 points for research mission, and 2 points for the strategy. Josh, let me see here. Josh got 2 points for research mission and 1 point for the strategy. Oh no! I'm sorry. 1 point for vendetta and 1 point for the strategy. My mistake.
Yeah. What an
So Adam,
embarrassment.
tell us a little bit about. So Adam, tell us about your take on the game. How things played out.
So I wanted to take Von Stuck into this. First of all, I love Turf War. I love Turf War. I love Turf War in GG0. I think Turf War is the quintessential strategy in Malifaux. I think it includes a lot of the different components of the game that make the game great. It includes the killing portion. It includes the scheming portion. It includes movement. I think it's probably the best all-around strategy in the game, and I'm glad it's made a comeback. Now, that said, looking at the schemes, I thought maybe Vendetta would be a good choice because the scouts and most everything else in my list has range of some type. So I could pick a quality model, put a few shots on it, get it down to half from a distance, and then try to keep that model relatively safe. I decided to go with research mission because I know with my upgrades, I have ways to make markers. I can make bullet to hell markers. I can make landmine markers, plus the whatever corpses or anything, and the strategy markers themselves are going to be all over the table. I didn't take bait and switch, and the reason I didn't take bait and switch is because I think it's garbage. I think it's. I think that's they did a lot right in GG2. I love a lot of it. That scheme just boggles my mind, and I don't know why it exists, and I will likely never take it.
Is it runic binding bad?
It just doesn't make any sense. It doesn't. You're totally relying on your opponent unless you have like a full lore crew. Like it totally relies on your opponent. And guess what? If they're in your backfield, they're probably scoring their schemes anyway, so it's inevitably just going to be a wash. But yeah, that being said, Van Von Stuck got hit pretty good. You know, I had experience playing against Von Stuck. Jared played Von Stuck before. And Jake also played Von Stuck against me before. Our friends in our gaming group, and like I used to dread just undergrads just flying around the table and like clocking you like 3 times, and then just like models flying all over the place, and a lot of wind got taken out of those sails. So I think I don't think he's bad. I just think he's going to have to play totally different now. And I think that's going to be an adjustment for some people.
Oh, it was.
Yeah. Like I think you almost have to play him. I think you kind of have to play him just like strictly like a debuff master now. You know, just like using him to spam injured, and then like scalping out models. I think he has some scheme game in there too, because you can drop the schemes when the models die, and he still has good card draw. It's just nowhere near as mobile and really alpha strike as it used to be. So, but otherwise, I mean, it was a good game. I enjoyed it. It was a Vaughn off, and the right Vaughn won. So, yeah, I mean, I don't know what more I can say about it.
So, I mean, I'm curious to see, is this your first game with Von Schill, Adam?
It was my first game with Von Schill. It's actually my first game with all these masters.
Oh, with all of them? Oh,
Yeah.
I thought maybe they were just ones that you didn't have much experience
No,
with. No experience with.
My first game. It's my first game with all of them. I mean, I've been, like I said, I toyed around theory wise, and like did my opening moves on the table and stuff on my own table and stuff like that. But yeah, it was my first game of Von Schill.
Wow, pretty impressive showing. First game with all 3 masters, and you come out number 1, first place. So good on you.
Yeah, but at the same time, it's GG2 and it's new for everybody. So
everybody's learning, exactly.
Yeah, but honestly, going into these 3, I thought he might have been my favorite, but he ended up being probably my least favorite of the 3. I think he's got tons of game. He's very good. I think I just need more work with him because he has a lot of moving parts, and you have to be able to get the right upgrades out at the right time. And like Lazarus was disappointing. Yeah. Lazarus looks good on paper, but in game, he actually like didn't really do what I expected him to do. So it's just going to be a matter of getting reps in with him and figuring out what models do what, when to take them. But I mean, otherwise, yeah, it was a pretty good game.
Cool. So, Josh, I'm gonna kind of nudge the soapbox over in your direction. Why don't you tell us a little bit about your experiences with Von Stuck and how you feel the changes affected him?
Sure. Yeah. So I'd played games with Von Stuck before, but I think my last one was in February or March 2020. So it'd been a little while. And I was so focused on figuring out what Von Stuck should be doing that I did things like take Let Them Bleed against the Von Schill crew. Uh, you know,
Yeah.
those sort of plays.
It seems like a wise decision.
Yeah, it didn't work out too well for me. But I mean, Adam was pretty much spot on with what Stuck should be doing these days, which is playing a sort of bully to the scheme runners while he schemes, rather than being an alpha strike crewer. Somebody that's going to go in, send Valley in turn one with the undergraduates. He needs to be sort of sitting back in his bubble and laying down ski markers and picking off the outliers now. And I realized that about halfway through the game, and it didn't do me too much good at that point.
Yeah, I think he needs to just be a little more reserved now. I mean, you used to be able to just chuck things in with reckless abandon, and now, I mean, it's almost like you kind of want to set up for when they said something into you. Because, like, let's say I send, I don't know, let's say I send what's his face, Arik in there,
Eric.
right?
Yep.
Let's say I send him in there,
Mm-hmm.
just willy nilly, like trying to alpha you, and now you put injured 3 on him and you beat up on him with everybody. I mean, and then you summon off another model on him.
Exactly.
I think it's just they did it specifically so it wasn't just rush across the board, beat the crap out of everybody, call it a day. They took a little bit off of them, made them a little more reserved. Now you have to actually plan it out.
Yeah.
In a different
Yeah,
way.
and I don't want to make it out to be Von Stuck's fault that this game went so badly, because I think that he's actually fine. There's only one. The removal of the blast on his weak damage is the only thing that kind of annoyed me a little bit. And obviously the undergraduate changes are going to make some huge impacts in his crew makeup, but otherwise I think he's fine. He played perfectly, and I failed him in my scheme selections.
Yeah, I didn't obviously play in the event, and this is just maybe some editorializing, but I'll save it for later on what my thoughts on the Von Stuck changes were.
I mean, injured on a stick is no joke. I mean, that's why people used to take the Pale Rider like all the time, because that's what he did. He hit you from like 12 inches away and put injured on you. Like, I mean, injured on a stick is good. Plus, you're drawing cards with him, and he still has the ability to make something fast, and you can still summon things. I mean, it's still a good crew. It's just you need to play it different. You need to get free errata Von Stuck out of your head and learn this one.
So I guess Kyle, we've talked about their game, so why don't you tell us a little bit about your game?
Sure. So yeah, I was doing Von Chill as well, because apparently me and Adam were thinking very much alike, and like the only reason that I didn't play Vic's first game was because I didn't have them painted. So but generally I played Von Chill, and I love that boy. He was the first master that I ever bought, and I bought him back in M2E when nobody around me was playing. So I'm like, I'm gonna buy these models. I screamed at the top of my lungs as I painted them, and as I built the freaking steam trunk, trying to not like tear my own eyes out. But anyway, Von Schill's great, and he's great into that specific selection, because you can just sit him in a corner, and it's like, well, I have 5 models right now that could heal any of my other models, so try me on. I dare you. I put +4 shielded on this one model. Try and hurt her. I bet you won't. So that's what's fun about Von Schill, and also the fact that he can just be whatever you want him to be at the moment. Now I took bait and switch, and this was against Yuko, and I put it on Hinamatsu thinking that Hinamatsu will come to me, but no, I was playing against my brother, and he just kind of kept Hinamatsu back, hoping that I would come to him. So as obviously, 2 twins think alike, and now we're sitting in the same spot thinking like, no, you come to me. No, you come to me. Um, One thing I figure about bait and switch is that if you don't score the first point at the entire game through, you're gonna score the second point, because the enemy doesn't know that you have it. So unless you somehow tip your hat, you get that free extra point. Because is he really going to stick an 8-point model in your backline somewhere in your deployment zone? Probably not.
Yeah, I mean,
So
it could be. Yeah.
it can potentially, you just take it like, I don't think I'm going to get however, I'm not going to get like 8 points out of this game, but I can get 7.
Yeah, I mean, it could happen. I guess
Yeah.
it probably really depends on the deployment. So, like, if you get wedge or flank,
Yeah.
then there's not great odds that you're going to score that second
Yeah.
point because the deployment zones are so big.
Yeah.
But, like, if you're standard or corner, yeah. I
Yeah,
mean,
especially corner. I'm
yeah.
thinking like, hey, you're not coming into my deployment zone most likely. I'm just gonna take it and get a free point. I mean, that's one thing. That's why I don't like this game. I think it's probably pretty dumb because of the way it works. The fact that you need an 8-point model to be in your deployment zone, it's like, really?
Yeah, it's kind of funny because, like, after I put together the pool, I didn't really put 2 and 2 together as I was building it, in that I put bait and switch and breakthrough in the same pool with flank, because I mean, it really should make bait and switch just a terrible, terrible choice, because you're going to have a hard time scoring the first point. You're going to have, because it's just not easy. You're going to have a hard time scoring the second point because your opponent is incentivized to have a model in your deployment zone, or multiple models in your deployment zone. So that was kind of a mistake on my part in terms of pool building. But yeah, I mean, I think you're definitely onto something there, especially depending on the deployment.
Yeah. So my brother was playing Yuko in this case, which, I mean, it's the first time he's playing him since the errata, and she's interesting. She's definitely good, but against I basically forced him to do all his willpower attacks against Hannah with her willpower 7. So I'm just sitting back there like, yeah, go ahead, make me do stuff. I probably won't. Which is a shame for him. And then of course I just did the Von Chill thing of just not dying because all my guys have armor and shielded, and I'm healing everybody 2 times a turn. So keep trying, and I'll just not die.
Yeah, so I guess in the end, you ended up scoring 6 points. Your opponent, your brother, as we discussed, scored 4. You got 2 points for Vendetta, 1 point for bait and switch, and 3 points for the strategy. You got 1 point for bait and switch, 0 points for let them bleed, which, as we've discussed, not a great choice into Von Chill.
Yep.
And it looks like you got what? Did he get any strategy points? 3 points.
He should have. He should have gotten.
Yeah, he did.
Yeah.
Yeah, 3 points on the strategy, 1 point on bait and switch. So, again, just kind of an aside. Pretty funny that you and your brother ended up spending a total of 8 or 9 hours traveling in a day, and only to play each other in round 2.
It's the curse of a tournament. That's what happens in every single tournament I've ever played in. Whether it was Guild Ball, this Warhammer, if you go with your friend, you're gonna end up playing him, even though you played him like 50 times.
Every single time. Single time.
That's what ends up happening. Sometimes we'll go out to tournaments in Western Mass, and we've even gone out there with like a crew of like 5 or 6 people. Mm-hmm. And it always ends up being the same way. We get paired against whoever on round 1, and then rounds 2 and 3 where we always end up.
I know the last one.
Each other.
The last one we went to, we traveled like 2 hours, 2.5 hours for it. I ended up playing round 1 against Jesse, and then like round 3 against one of the guys I play like I used to play like 2-3 times a month. So
yeah,
it's always happens.
All right, cool. So moving right on to round 3, Adam. We'll go with you first. So round 3, we had the new strategy, break the line, standard deployment, deathbeds, outflank, spread them out, claim jump, and detonate charges. You played Tara into our buddy Jake Brownell's Zoraida crew, and it looks like you won that game 6-1. So a resounding victory. You took 3 points on the strategy, 2 points on claim jump, and 1 point on detonate charges. So tell us a little bit about how that game went down.
Yeah, so like I was saying earlier about how Von Schill was surprisingly my least favorite, Tara was surprisingly my favorite of the 3 that I played. The girl's got game. The girl's got a lot of game. And she is a summoner. And she took a little bit of a hit with the summoning with the summoning errata that occurred, but she still schemes like a motherfucking champ. So I ended up taking her and the Midnight Stalker, who didn't really suffer from his errata at all. I had to keep him a little safer and keep him away from stuff, but I mean, he's a schemer. That's what he should have been doing in the first place, right? So I was able to he just could not stop me from getting break the line. I just kept getting to the markers and moving them, and then his stuff would pop up to try and move them, and then I'd bury those models or I'd kill it, and then I would just leap over to another model, leap over to another strategy marker and kick it. When he was able to kick him over to my side, I ended up getting activation control because I took Aonis as well, so I was generating pass tokens. Um, it was nuts. I loved it. I love her gameplay. Um, I was able to actually summon up two of the good old my two of my goodest boys, my Void Hunters. Man, those are great models.
Yep.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. I mean, detonate charges seems like a no brainer for her, especially if you have Midnight Stalker in the crew because you just can't stop it. It's almost impossible. I didn't take Outflank. I considered it, but I ended up taking Claim Jump instead with Aonis because I figured if he does get a model anywhere in the middle that could try and counter it, I could try to bury them. Aonis is fairly survivable, and I find that he tends to stay a little further back than the rest of the crew. And once he gets into the middle, he should be fine. But yeah, I mean, it came down to he made an early. He extended his first mate. He took the first mate and he extended him a little too early, and I was able to get the Nothing Beast into him and just take him down. I want to say like early turn 2, and then I was just able to, through the use of burying, essentially keep the majority of his crew into like one half of a table corner and just dominate the rest of the table.
Yeah, it seemed when I went over to the table a couple of times, it really seemed like you hemmed him in, especially to his half of the table, and especially in that 1/4 of the table, and he was having a really hard time getting out of there.
Yeah, I mean, I threw some of the void fleas into them just because they're really weak and they're not going to do much. I mean, they're kind of annoying, but they're also surprisingly survivable considering their stats, just because of incorporeal and the stuff that goes into them. So, I mean, they essentially were just thrown into jam up, and then I threw Void Hunters in there to jam up because if they die, I can just summon more Void Hunters. And then it was just a matter of making him take high TNs and burying his models. I mean, he had a Hinamatsu that I think buried like twice, and I just kept popping her back out into like the woods, So it was just it was a lot of board control and just systematically removing models as I could.
Yeah, she definitely seems like a master that would appeal to you.
Yeah,
Sure.
I think I'm definitely gonna. I'm not saying I was gonna say I'll definitely take her into Symbols of Authority as well, because I think if I take her and the Emissary and then I toss out Don't Mind Me on her, it's just game over.
Yeah, that's a pretty quick crew, no question about it. All right, cool. So let's move on to Kyle. So Kyle, you played Tara as
Yep.
well.
Yep.
You played against another one of our travel buddies, Jesse Ravicki from the Connecticut meta. He was playing Ma Tuckett. Looks like you took that game 4-3, so pretty tight game. You got 2 points on the strategy, 1
Yep.
point on detonate charges, and 1 point on claim jump. Your opponent got
Yep.
2 strategy points, 1 for outflank, and 0 for detonate charges.
Yep. So the game ended turn 4, so I don't know what happened after that, but it was a weird turn 1 and a very weird top of turn 2. Because what up and happening is Ma Tuckett, she had the 2 Rooster Riders, the bane of my existence on the flanks, shooting 14-inch guns at me while I'm trying to just like say stop, no, don't, please, as you kill Karina, you kill some other model. But I ended up managing to get the Nothing Beast out on one of the Rooster Riders and just massacre it with with those 2-inch melee and the 3-4 something attack, which helps, especially if he's doing damage to his own models in order to get reckless fast. So then, of course, just Tara doing her thing. The scheme and the strats, I think, really appealed to Tara. That's why both me and Adam took him. I mean, I like the strat, and we might go into that in a little bit. But I think the strat is smart. I think it's a better version than whatever it was called in GG0, which whatever when you had to base it on the initiative flip.
Corrupted idols, I
Yeah,
believe.
I think this is the upgrade to that, and I like the counterplay of being able to push those markers forward. The enemy can push them back. You can try and push them into places where he can't get to them. It to me, I think that's like a really good example of what fun Malifaux can be. Is that counterplay? Is that thought process? It's like 4D chess. You have to be thinking about what he could be doing, what he wants to do, and what he's trying to do at the moment. Um, so overall, Tara just does what she wants, and she can't get shot at because you just stone and ignore it. So just jump her around, do the strat while everybody else is trying to do the schemes and kill everybody else. And new Talos is my new Bay. I love that little boy.
Yeah, so I was kind of looking forward to getting to that because I know you took the Talos, Adam. You did not take the Talos. So tell us a little bit about the changes to the Talos, why you love it, and I'm interested to hear Adam's take on it too.
So now Talos can actually play the game that the rest of the crew is playing, since he can now attack enemy models that are buried. So it gives him so much more capability just with that. Plus, he got extra defense and willpower. Plus, he now gets a trigger off of his melee attack where he can take his into the furnace action. Plus, enemy models that are burning also have lessened. They get injured so that they have a lessened defense and willpower when they're in the void. So you just start massacring them there. He's just now finally worth 8 stones, and he is very fun to play because when you manage to get off that trigger with the tomes on his attack and put them in the furnace, and now they're suddenly in the void, you feel like such the beam. You finally feel like Talos is doing what he wants to do, which is put people in his chest and let them chill out there or heat up there. I don't know, however you want to put it. He's just fun. I just
Cool.
enjoy the fact that he's there.
So hot take, ha ha ha, you like
Yeah.
Talos?
I
Yeah.
do.
Adam, what do you think about Talos?
No, I mean I agree. I mean Talos is a stud model. I didn't take him specifically because I was playing Zoraida, and I wanted to take Hans because because you're only ever going to get one good shot on Zoraida because she's just going to end the activation. So I wanted, and I know she's got that crazy arc node stuff through her Swamp Fiend. So I wanted it to be if she ever poked her head out, that she was going to get hit with like damage 6 to the face. And I wanted to keep her kind of honest. I think Talos is awesome. Talos doesn't have from nothing though, so he can't be buried
Mhm.
and then spit back out. And I think in this particular game, he would have fallen behind. And he would have contributed through the berries and the burning and stuff like that. But ultimately, I think he would have been left behind. That said, I mean, I think he's a fantastic. He got an incredible upgrade, and not an upgrade, but like as far as his raw stats and everything, he got an incredible upgrade. His burning shtick works now. I love the Void Maw trigger. I think it takes something that you used to have to like, oh, should I try and bury him or should I just smack him in the face with a hammer? And now you can smack him in the face with a hammer and try to bury him. So
Yeah.
I think, and he can attack buried models now, like he was saying, which is very good because it goes with the rest of the crew. And it used to be you buried the models and now you can't do anything with them, and that's what he's supposed to be, is clubbing things, and you can't do anything. So, yeah, he's a very good piece. If you have any healing in your crew whatsoever, um, he's stud. I mean, he could have very well done claim jump for me if I brought something that had healing.
Mhm.
You know,
I think that not taking him into Zoraida in particular was a great choice too, because it just occurred to me that if she obeys him, he can attack.
he can attack my buried models.
Models.
Yeah, he can attack my buried models as well. So like, it was just a matter of I mean, he's got terrifying, sure, and he's got a pretty high willpower, but why? I just figured I'd take Hans,
Yeah.
reach out, shoot some stuff, and then I ended up using Hans just to spit out distracted more than anything at that game. So I mean, it ended up working out.
Cool. So, Kyle, let's kind of talk about, or not Kyle. What am I talking about? Josh, let's talk about your round 3. So let's see here. We've got you played Von Stuck once again into our buddy Chris O'Brien's Jackdaw.
Obesity.
You took that game. Yeah, Obesity. You took that game 5-2.
Yeah.
It looks like you scored 3 points on the strategy. You did not score Claim Jump, but you did get 2 points on Deathbeds, one of the new schemes. And the Jackdaw crew got 2 strategy points, did not score anything on Deathbeds, and did not score anything on Claim Jump. So tell us a little bit about how the game went, and especially how Deathbeds went for you.
Can I just do a quick shout out before we start up with this? Just a quick
Yeah.
shout out to Chris O'Brien. He's like one of the best people, I mean, he's just a great guy. He had a hell of a year last year, and for him to come out and join us and get some games in, it was really nice to see him, and I just wish him the best.
Yeah, he's definitely a staple at some of our events. He's come to pretty much every event that I've put on since I started running events as a henchman. And he's just constant source of positivity in the New England meta. So cheers to you, Chris Obese. So yeah, Josh, now that we've cut you off and talked about how awesome your opponent was, why don't you tell us how you stomped him into the ground?
So initially I was going to take Riva into this match, and I ended up leaving some of her kit at home. So I fell back on Von Stuck to give him another try after round 2. And it ended up going really, really well. Part of that might have been because Jackdaw got stuck in a corner for most of the game, which really helped me to extend Stuck's crew without worrying too much about it. But this scheme pool for Von Stuck is fantastic. I took 3 Necropunks in this, and they started jumping all over the place, which forced him to extend outside of his bubble, which weakens that whole crew quite a bit. And I was just able to sort of outpace his ability to kill my models. He played cagely enough that I don't think I was actually able to summon in anything for the entire game, which was kind of disappointing. But yeah, Deathbeds with Von Stuck is incredibly easy to do. All I had to do was push Von Stuck up enough that I was able to start laying down scheme markers at the same time that I was killing off his very easy to kill guilty, and the points started rolling in. So I have no complaints about that scheme with Von Stuck whatsoever.
So what did you choose for your Deathbeds marker type?
So I went with corpse markers because there were going to be a ton of them, and that ended up being no problem.
Cool. And then you took Claim Jump on Valedictorian. No, I guess probably no great surprise there.
Yeah, I put I mean that was kind of a mistake because I overextended her too early, and he ended up taking her out before she could score it. If I'd put it on Anna, I probably would have had a better time. But yeah, I was thinking I could just push her up into the middle, and Valley would be scary enough that he would stay out, and he ended up getting a lucky pick, I think, with a severe or something to wipe her off the board a turn earlier than I was hoping.
Cool. So Deathbed's kind of a gimme. Definitely a cool scheme. That's one that I think TOs are going to have to be sort of careful to make sure that they don't put in the same pool as maybe a couple other things, especially Research Mission, because that could make for some pretty high-scoring scheme games for some crews, but definitely a cool scheme for sure. All right, cool. So Necropunks, I mean, you took 3 Necropunks right after they got nerfed. So what did you think of the change? Because they lost the suit on their leap, but now they only need a 4 to get it off, right? Is that correct?
Yeah, well, 4 with masks, I believe, and that probably out of all of the changes hurts the most. I was thinking it would would not be that difficult because of the amount of cards that you're cycling most of the time with Von Stuck. But yeah, that I was missing leaps left and right and not having the right cards in hand, and even more than the changes to Stuck himself, that was disrupting my strategy all over the place. That's going to take some getting used to.
Yeah, for sure. I can't recall which other podcast this was, but I was listening to one of the numerous kind of GG2 wrap up episodes that came out in this last week or so, and I think I heard on one of the other podcasts that somebody had parsed the percentage of cards in your deck that you could use to successfully leap with a Necropunk, and with the change, it's down to like I think they said like 17% of the cards in your deck, which is a whole heck of a change because I think prior to that it was up in the high 30s or low 40s. So
yeah, and they did. I mean, they did fine for me. They did a lot of work, but it feels like they're missing something now without that super easy leap. Yeah, I just wasn't able to get out as much out of them as I would have liked to.
yeah, and I guess to some folks' point, I guess you can't really ask for everything out of a schemer, and that's kind of the thing they did with like Midnight Stalker, because before Midnight Stalker was a super schemer and super impossible to kill, and and blah 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 blah. And Necropunks were kind of the same way, like inordinately difficult to kill for their stone cost, plus a built-in suit on their leap. It seemed like it was, as an opponent, damn near impossible to stop them from doing whatever it was they were going to do.
Yeah, I mean, and I think reliably you can get one to leap. Between your card draw and between, I mean, you just need one mask. Well, you might have to chuck a high mask into it, but you should get at least one mask between the number of cards in your hand plus the number of cards you draw. It's when you start having 2, 3 of them that it's like, well, you're not going to have enough for everybody.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. I did burn a 13 of masks, I believe, in that game with a clutch leap, which I mean, I think it scored me a point, but it did hurt.
Scored a point. That's what the game is. If it scores you a point, 13's worth it.
Yep.
That's
I mean,
right.
I've related it to the Midnight Stalker before, where it's like if you're used to playing the Midnight Stalker, you're used to like searching for that low masks in your hand.
Yep.
So I mean, Von Stuck is probably a lot better than Levy is dealing with the change, because Levy has basically no card draw as far as I'm aware. So Von Stuck can try and hunt for those masks. Levy is just like sitting there, hoping that one ends up in his hand at the top of the turn, and if it doesn't, well, it looks like the Necropunk is just a 5 cost paperweight.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. All right, cool. So that kind of wraps up the last of the games that we're going to talk about for round 3. So let's just kind of do like a quick, wrap up, overall thoughts on GG2, so on and so forth. So, Adam, what are your overarching thoughts on GG2? Do you think it's good for the game? Do you think it's a move in the right direction? Do you think, some of the changes may have been oversteps, or are they just right? So,
I think that a lot of these changes were a long time coming. I think if you look at what really got hit by the bat were things that people regularly complained about, right? Um, I mean, you look at like the past the past year, 2 years, and like every week there's like 3, 4 different posts complaining about summoners. Like our summoners broken? Summoners are bad for the game. What do you do about summoners? Um, it was going to happen. They had to do something with it because they were absolutely right. Summoners were better than everybody else because they just had more versatility and they were bringing in quality models and they needed to do something with it, and they did. It doesn't make summoners bad. It just brings them back down to earth. Leviticus isn't bad. He's just brought back down to earth. Outcast isn't just Leviticus and Zip anymore. Like there's other models that are going to get play now. I think overall it's good for the game. I think they got rid of problematic strategies. I like pretty much all the strategies in GG2. I think they're all very good. I like most of the schemes in GG2. I think a lot of them, there's a lot of balance there. I think that maybe 1 or 2 of them are kind of bad, but I mean, they're not all going to be winners, Overall, I think it actually brought a good little shake up to the meta. It brought a little bit of balance in. I've heard people complain, well, why didn't you make this person better, and why didn't you make that like this master better, or this keyword? And I think a lot of it is by making halves your halves, bringing them back down to the middle. Your have nots weren't that far off from the middle. Now, just because those halves went down, you're making the game a lot more balanced and a lot more competitive. Um, we also don't know what's coming up in the future now with these titles, So, I mean, that might bring a whole different layer to this game, and maybe that's why certain masters weren't changed, because there's going to be alternate play styles. So how are you going to why are you going to errata them to change them when you're going to have another play style coming out for them in a title? I think this was a good patch, and I think this is going to be really good for the competitive community, especially since the world should be opening up soon. Fingers crossed. Get vaccinated.
Yeah, and to your point about the haves getting brought down a peg and the have not getting brought up a peg. I think one thing that people need to try and bear in mind, especially from a playtesting standpoint, is this is not an excuse to say that they shouldn't spend the time trying to figure out how to buff masters or models that aren't up to par, because obviously they did give some buffs, some fairly significant ones in this round of errata. But it's much easier to identify problems with clearly overpowered models or masters and ratchet them down in a way that doesn't break them than it is to totally rework a master like they did with Yoko. And I mean, time will tell where big changes like the Yoko change are going to lead towards the end of GG2, but it's easier to identify the problems and rein them in than it is to rework masters or make overarching changes to keywords and hope that you don't overcorrect in that fashion.
I mean, a lot of it is just in the GG2 packet as well. I mean, you look at the strategies, right? Ley lines. That's all movement. It's pretty much a full movement strategy. You got Torpor that really does all three of them. Break the line. That's movement and interacting. What's the other one there? Symbols of authority. That's movement and it's interacting. So just by changing what the strategies are, changing what the goals are, changing the goalposts, change who's good at what. Nobody. I don't like I. So as far as I knew, people thought Tara was absolute shit in GG1, and she's going to be solid as fucking GG2.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, and I've been playing since 2017, and I don't think a GG has gone by where I haven't had that one strategy that was always, you see it at the table and you're like, ugh, not this again. And this is probably the first time where I'm liking all four of them, and I'm not gonna roll my eyes if I hit the table with them.
Yeah, if I don't ever see another public enemies again in my life, I'll be happier for it.
Yeah, I think this is the best mix of strategies that I've seen in a Gaining Grounds document. Full stop. It's great.
Yeah, and I don't mind the summoner changes. I like the summoner changes. It makes you change the way you think about summoners. Like I know for me, what I would do with my summoners is I would buy heavy hitters. I would buy my heavy hitters and I would summon in my support, because they were generally cheaper, so they were easier to summon in, and because you could summon them in, generally free from harm, because you could summon them back, and it's just easier to do. Now you have to buy your support in schemers, because you can't just because if you don't, they're not going to be able to interact with the strategy markers. So now you
can't hire a bunch of bruisers and then
correct
summon in more bruisers turn 1 or turn 2 and then summon your schemers.
Exactly. Now you have to hire your scheme runners, and you're going to summon in your bruisers. That's why while I was playing Tower, I'm like, I'm going to buy my fleas. I'll summon in my void hunters, and I can just chuck them out as meat missiles. I don't care if they die. I'll get other ones. They're not going to do the strategy. It's just it's not bad. They're not bad. They just brought back to earth.
Yeah. So Kyle, what do you think? What are your thoughts on GG2 overall?
I mean, I'm pretty much in agreement. I mean, a lot of people were talking about sky is falling kind of thing, and I don't know if that's just sticker shock, like, oh God, somebody just nerfed my poor boy. But to me, like all the masters that I normally played weren't really touched. The one disappointment I had is I was really expecting maybe a few guild masters to get at least some buffs. I remember when what's his name? Uh when Mr. Guildguard, I forgot his name
Dashel.
suddenly.
Dashel.
Dashel. When they made one change to his totem, suddenly the master became probably one of the best ones in the faction. And I was just waiting for something like that to happen. But then when they announced this uh the characteristics for each of the different masters, I'm thinking, well, maybe that's what it's going to be, because I already like the new Sonya, and I think it's going to be an interesting choice between summoning Sonya and basically like alternate Karis Sonya. I think that's going to be an interesting choice. So that's what I'm really curious about, and that's what I like about the idea. So you're no longer going to have such a dichotomy of, well, they selected this master and I accidentally selected the master that is the hard counter to their master. So sorry, I just gained myself like 50% more ability to just win this game against you. I feel like there's going to be a little bit more choice and a little bit more gameplay with that. So that's what I think GG2 is aiming towards. It already knows what's happening in the future, and I like most of the schemes, and except for bait and switch, which I think is just an odd one, and I think it's just going to end up being taken to get one free point, because I can't imagine anybody doing it effectively. I actually, in my game when I was playing against my brother, I thought maybe if I just get Von Schill and just run at the model that I said is going to bait and switch, and I just pull him 5 inches, 5 inches, 5 inches, and try that, it might work. But then the game ended turn 4, so I didn't get to try it. So it was just going to be really stupid of me just shoving the Hinamatsu like 50 yards into my end zone, going goal, and then Hinamatsu probably killing 2 of my models because I just shoved him into my back line. But you know, that's basically my opinion.
Cool. And Josh, what about you? What are your thoughts on things overall?
Yeah, so I mean, generally positive. Like I said, I'm loving the strategies. I haven't played enough of the schemes yet to know if there are any like super losers. Obviously, some of them might be a little bit more difficult for a lot of crews. But I might regret this as someone who plays a lot of summoners, but I don't think that the changes go far enough to even out how good they can be. And like I said, I didn't really feel Kirai getting the touch at all. So I don't know. Maybe they'll address that later. Maybe the titles will address it, but that's probably where the room for improvement is for me. Is they're still way too powerful.
Oh, some of them got touched. Like Sandeep took a big old hit.
Yeah, Sandeep is hurting for sure.
Yeah, that's actually something I wanted to ask Adam's opinion on before we broke was the Sandeep thing. So Sandeep got hit. It's funny because you look at the errata and you say, oh well, it was just Kandara, so he lost some card draw. Like, all right, well that sucks for him, but whatever. But then you start looking at like the focus changes and the overall GG changes, and he got hit pretty hard. So Adam, as somebody who has quite a bit of experience with Sandeep, um, what do you think about these changes?
They changed his style of play. He has to change. He can't play like he used to, and I think that's not necessarily a bad thing. I mean, Sandeep was very much in the same position he was in 2E, where he was kind of he wasn't a jack of all trades. He was a king. He could do a lot of things, and they did them all very well. He's an obey master still. He was summoning like crazy. He could reach out and touch things. I think now the changes to how focus works with replacing, how summoning works, Kandara's card draw. That's the biggest one. The card draw in Kandara, it just hurts him a lot because he was drawing somewhere like 7, 8 cards a turn. Like it was insane. He needed it though. He was so good. He was so good. Um, but was it too much? I don't know. And good news for me. I'm not playing I'm not playing Arcanist anymore, so it's not my problem. I don't have to worry about it. But I think it's gonna be. I think you're gonna have to try and figure out an alternative method of play. I think he's gonna have to rely more on the obeys than he is on summoning big gribbly golems. I think he's gonna have to again purchase the golems. It's almost inverse of what I said. Like he's gonna have to purchase the golems and then like summon the little guys, but that right there hurts him because really summoning scheme runners.
Right. Yeah, he doesn't have any low or mid tier beaters. Like all of his models are either support, like with Metal Gammon, or schemers with Wind Gammon, or models that just don't do that much of anything.
Yeah, it's either little or it's huge. I mean, I guess ultimately you're gonna end up. It's not bad to summon in a golem if you're not planning on using it for strategy play or scheme play. Just use it as a big old golem that's going to beat stuff up. I guess it's fine. The problem is that you're not going to have that golem at like focus 5. But did you really need the golem on focus 5? You know, I mean, was that kind of overkill?
Yeah. I mean, for him,
And
it's
he's
like the focus stacking and the replace rules hurt him.
Yeah,
as well.
and
So
then
it's like,
but you know, like he has shouting orders that like never got used. You know, I mean, like some people would use it, sure, but I mean, like when something you stacked like focus 5 or something on it just from replacing and stuff like that. I mean, it's. I think he's going to be fine. I think it's just you're going to have to change the playstyle. You're going to have to rely more on the obeys. And I tended to play with him like that anyway. I would summon first turn and then I would obey for the rest of the game, unless I summoned like a poison bomb, but that's not going to change.
so do you think that this sees more academic models make it onto the table, like the Shasavidia guards and the mages and stuff like that?
I think Kudra needed to go down a point, but I don't know. Because those models are still super expensive, you know, and I don't. Maybe I'd have to really look at it. I didn't really take a deep dive into it because again, I'm not playing Arcanist, but I mean, you could see right off the bat like how he was hit pretty hard with that. Good news though is I'll be able to play Leviticus now and not feel bad about it.
There you go. But will you still be able to play Hamlin? Because I know you were getting ramped up for him to be your primary
Hamlin was
outcast master.
Hamlin was my boy when I was able to like summon in 2 focus 7 Rat Kings and chuck them at the enemy. But yeah, it's going to be different for Hamlin. I don't know how that's going to work because now he's summoning in. The stuff he summons in can't be used for the strats and the schemes now. He's like a summoner, and he's not even like a primary summoner. You know, like Tara's the primary summoner of Outcast. He's more of like he's supposed to be more of an incidental summoner. But it almost hurt him more than it hurt Tara.
Other than rats, wait, what else is he summoning other than? Well, because you can make a bunch of rats.
Yeah, so he has this crazy rat engine, and he's not even summoning them. It's his henchman Benny. But like essentially, what would happen is like you start off with a Rat King. During your turn, you drop a scheme marker, drop a scheme marker, push and drop a scheme marker, and then blow up or something like that. And then you have multiple scheme markers down, and then you get like a rat catcher. And then like you do that with the other one, and then you have some other models drop scheme markers, and then you have Benny go and he like pulses out and turns all those scheme markers into rats. And then Hamlin goes and he has a 0 action that lets every vermin within 6 inches do push and take a non-free action.
Right.
Well, guess what? 3 of those rats are pushing and getting focus, and then that last rat is pushing and turning into a Rat King. So then you end up.
Oh, that's right. Oh my god.
Yes, and if you get the trigger on his pulse, it actually gives all those rats a focus. So now you're looking at like 2 focus 7 Rat Kings that you just made in that turn.
Yeah.
But now it's like, but they're.
But now it's like,
now it's like get focus 2, and
now it's like 2 focus 2 Rat Kings. It's actually it's. I mean, you could still do it because you'd have to buy rats, because if you bought the rats, then they haven't activated yet. So when you turn that rat into the Rat King, it can continue its activation.
Yeah.
It doesn't end its activation. It continues its activation. But if you make the Rat King out of rats that have already activated, then it can't act.
Yep.
But even then, it's still focus 2. But whatever. I mean, it's a focus 2 Rat King. I mean, I never really needed focus 7 either. But I mean, it was always nice to have, you know? I mean, that's largely.
Well, it's when you had to bust out the D8s to mark your focus, you know you're in a good place. So.
Yeah.
Well, then you have be a problem.
Yeah, you have high dice for your focus. You have high dice for the blighted. I mean, it's all. But let me look up something. Then we're gonna patch this up in a minute.
Sure.
Just mark this because I want to see if the rat catchers are summoned
I believe they are.
when you kill.
Are they replaced or summoned?
That's what I want to check because if they're summoned, then that's a huge hit.
I'm pretty sure they're summoned.
Rat.
That's something I talked to John Fox about.
Rat King.
You know, because I never could take Hamlin in a freaking tournament because it usually took me 3 hours just to play a turn of Hamlin.
Oh, I loved him. I was crushing dicks with him. It was fucking fantastic because like nobody expected Hamlin because nobody played fucking Hamlin.
Mm.
Let me see, Rat King. Rat problems. Summon a rat catcher with slow. So that is huge. That fucking blows.
Yeah, it's bad.
So the problem is just summoning in the rat catcher. Hey, guess what your rat catcher has? Don't mind me. Guess what you're going to use them for? Scheming. Strategy markers. Guess what you can't do now? That.
Yeah.
So that's problematic.
All right. So thanks everybody for their thoughts. I'm gonna hold the editorializing for now because this episode's running a little bit long and we got plenty of content to get through in the future. But overall, I would say I really love GG2, kind of mirroring what some of these guys said and what I said before. I think the strat mix is fantastic, and there's really only one scheme that I view as kind of a dud, and it's still better than Runic Binding. So there you go. So thanks to all my guests for hopping on. So definitely you can get in touch with us on the Boring Conversation Facebook group. We also have a Discord server, and you can check out our Knights of the Round Base Gaming Club Instagram page, which will be in the show notes. Also, please rate and review us. That's probably the single best way for us to get the word out. So let me know if we're doing a good job. Let me know if we're doing a bad job. You can keep your 1-star reviews to yourselves, though. So,
yeah, I mean, we had a little flux in scheduling, and we know that the episodes haven't been coming out as regular. That's largely in part to me. It was a work related issue, but that's getting resolved, and we should be more regular for you, which is always a good thing.
Yeah, I gave Adam some prune juice. We're good. So So as always, keep your conversations boring and stay weird, folks.